Okay, my clock says 10 o'clock, so I'm going to go ahead and get started so that we have our full time for this awesome conversation I'm sure we're going to have. My name is Melissa Toth. Welcome. A couple of things to start with. I want to tell you that there are survey and certificate of completions for PDHs on the HUVA homepage, so be sure to get those down for yourself. And also there is a raffle to win a $100 Amazon.com gift card and a link to enter on the HUVA homepage. It's $5 per ticket, and all proceeds benefit the ITS Carolina Scholarship Fund. The winner will be announced at the end of the final session, is the plan. So again, welcome. This is the regionalization of ITS program. And I'm Melissa Toth. I'm work at Atkins for 20 years. I'm director of ITS and traffic in the East region. And we have 4 panelists today that will be giving us a short presentation to introduce their respective roles and their programs. And after their presentations, we will move into questions from the audience. If you could put them in the chat, or if alternatively, I'll watch the chat, or you can also raise your hand if you'd like to speak, and I'll call on you and you can speak. Turn your cameras on if you would. That would be great. So let's get started. Our first panelist is Maria Roll, and I need to get her bio up. Maria Roll is a principal planner at the Atlanta Regional Commission in the Transportation Group. Maria started at ARC, which is the Atlanta Regional Commission, as an intern and has been there for 7 years. Currently, her work focuses on operations planning, transportation technology, and transportation equity. Maria holds a Master's of City and Regional Planning and a Master's of Science in Civil Engineering from Georgia Tech, Georgia Institute of Technology. Welcome, Maria.
Thanks, Melissa. Thanks for having me. So can you all see my screen and hear me okay? All right. So as Melissa said, I'm with Atlanta Regional Commission, and we just had a big regional TISMA planning effort, and I'm going to talk a little bit about it today. So part of our planning effort, of course, was getting some goals and visions. That was always the initial step for any planning agency. And we have some of the likely candidates here: safety, reliability, efficiency, equity, and environmental benefits. But one thing that I thought was really interesting that came out of our planning for the goals and vision were these foundational elements that help frame our discussion of TISMO in the region. And this is something that I think is very important, especially thinking about something that happens at such a local level regionally. So making sure that you're founding everything in collaboration, focusing on moving people and goods, then the data sharing piece, which can be very complicated, and really fostering that culture of innovation between all of your jurisdictions was something that we found will be really helpful. The reason we started this initiative, we started it late 2018, so it's been a while. It finished up mid last year. And we started it because we absolutely needed a new ITS architecture and an update to our old one. It had been about, I think, more than a decade. So there was a lot of new elements that went into it. And there were a lot of new stakeholders that we needed to capture. So this was a big effort. And we also put everything on the internet. So it's a lot easier to use. You can go to the website if you want to check it out. But that was the reason for this whole planning adventure that we went on. But while we were doing that, we decided that it was a great opportunity to think about things more holistically and really get a better picture of TISMO at a regional level. So we also captured some inventory. We looked at what kinds of pilot projects our jurisdictions might be interested in looking into in the future, and created a screening assessment for when we get different pilot project type funding requests. We also looked at data governance from a regional level and to see what role ARC should be playing or what relationships we should be starting with other jurisdictions and partners. And we also created a local agency deployment guide to look more into the different kinds of technology at a deeper level to give better advice to our local jurisdictions when they had questions about different types of technology. And these are all available on our website at atlantaregional.org/TSMO. But the real impetus for this plan was, of course, having a strategic plan. And we set this to go through a 5-year action plan and a 10-year action plan. And we also included an assessment of the region, comparing what our region did to best practices nationwide and assessing the gaps that we had in our region versus the goals that we had set in the beginning of the process. So building on that assessment, we created our action plan. So several initiatives came out of this. Some were focused on the planning effort in general, and some were focused on deployment. The foundational element initiatives include strengthening our planning and institutions when it comes to TSMO, thinking more about data sharing and data management, and encouraging innovation through things like different procurement methods. We also wanted to emphasize some special deployments, including connected and automated vehicle technologies. We wanted to think about deploying better regional coordination and network communications throughout. And our work zone and event management was something that is also a priority at the state level. Our transit operators also wanted to think about the technologies in terms of transit efficiency, and we wanted to advance mobility as a service region-wide. So each of these initiatives have an action, and each of those actions have a checklist. So the plan is really made up of all of these strategic steps to get to those initiatives and goals that we set at the beginning. We also outlined the stakeholders for each of these actions and who we thought should be leading the action. So the plan overall has 31 specific actions and 208 of these steps in the checklists. So there's quite a lot of meat to this document. If you want to check that out, that's also on our website. And I like to just call it my work plan because that's essentially what it is at this point. And we have started implementing some of this. One of our first actions for our strengthening TSMO planning was creating a subcommittee. We had our first meeting in February, and we had over 40 attendees of local governments and our state partners and other regional partners. And it was pretty good. We went through a lot of what's happening in the region. And we also have 2 programs moving forward that Andrew's going to get into a little more detail on, including CV1K, our Regional Connected Vehicle Program, and a joint data purchasing program that we're embarking on with the state. So that is it for my presentation. I'm going to stop sharing and pass it back to Melissa.
Okay, thanks, Maria. Next, she was talking about Andrew. We have Andrew Heath, and Andrew joined the Georgia Department of Transportation in 2008. He has held numerous positions within the department, including
Did we lose Melissa there?
Yeah, I think she froze.
Okay, well, I'll go ahead and jump in as she froze. I hope everybody can see my screen. again, I'm Andrew Heath. I'm the state traffic engineer for the Georgia Department of Transportation. I've been with the department for a little longer than 13 years. I started in the Office of Planning for about 5 years, worked for the chief engineer, which was tremendous experience at a DOT to serve in that role for a couple of years, and then moved over to the Office of Traffic Operations, where I am in my current role. GDOT is a relatively centralized agency for those of you that are not aware. So our Office of Traffic Operations is sort of broadly responsible for all freeway management, arterial management programs on a statewide level. We also get into safety, various safety programs, and emerging technology like CAV. So my presentation is really kind of building off of what Maria just shared with you. And first and foremost, I do want to give Maria and ARC a lot of credit for their work on the TSMO plan that they developed over the last couple of years. It's made our jobs a little bit easier on our end, and it sort of drugged GDOT back into the regional game, so to speak, to air a little dirty laundry when Maria was talking about the ITS architecture. Prior to the most recent architecture that was developed, our last one dated back to 2005. It had been updated in 2011, but as you can imagine, that was a relatively old document with a number of things that were quite out of date. So that alone was a very important thing. But it also got us on the path with a number of regional efforts, two of which I'll speak about this morning. And I think the most important thing about this is that Maria talked about the planning effort, and it has immediately translated into implementation, which is always a good thing to see, that the momentum of that planning effort has continued into a formal structure at the regional level through ARC and its various subcommittees, but also direct efforts for implementation that are actually happening and starting to already be deployed in the field. So that's always exciting to see. So just two efforts I'm going to quickly talk about this morning through my presentation. One is the Regional Connected Vehicle Initiative. As Maria stated, it was directly included in the regional TSMO plan, so we were able to grab that and say, yep, let's do this. Sounds great. The exciting thing about that is it's a direct engagement with local governments when you're talking about connected vehicle technology. I think that's an area that CV technology and that whole notion of emerging technology, continued engagement, education, outreach, coordination at the local level is going to be important as we try to work to see this technology be proliferated. And it's being done through a regional framework. So I'll kind of get into sort of the structure of how that is laid out and how it has ultimately already turned into a successful effort. The other is a joint agency data acquisition group, again, kind of coming through the regional TSMO plan, discussions about data governance, data structure, data sharing, data efficiency at the regional level. That was another one that we could sort of easily identify and say, we've got work to do here between the state and the region, and have developed a multi-party working group with the goal of that being to identify across agencies. I think we could easily identify that, hey, you're buying this data, you're also buying this data. Maybe we have one person buy it and try to share it, be a little bit more efficient in utilizing taxpayer dollars. So getting into the connected vehicle effort, I want to talk about two programs actually that sort of stand side by side. One is a regional deployment of connected vehicle technology, primarily the deployment of roadside units at signalized intersections across the Metro Atlanta region. GDOT alone has been underway in deploying this technology across the Metro region for the last few years. We have deployed 654 roadside units to date, which are operational and broadcasting SPAT and MAP data at those locations. And we are doing so as sort of a overlay through our SIGOPS program, previously known as RTOP program. So really sort of targeting the key arterials in the metro region and trying to get this technology deployed at those locations. The other is the new regional CV deployment initiative that was born through the TSMO regional effort. We are already, even though you saw that the plan wrapped up just last year, this program has already translated into 722 proposed locations through a partnership with ARC, GDOT, and local governments. for deployment above and beyond the map that you're currently looking at here. So you can see how the regional TSMO effort really translated and really spurred CV deployment at the local level. And these connected vehicle, the notion behind these connected vehicle deployments is all about creating baseline connectivity to empower anybody that wants to take advantage of it, right? For specific use cases, driving towards mobility and safety at the local level, at the state level, at the regional level, you name it. We want to attract partners that can come in, use this technology for the good. So you can see how it's beginning, these efforts are beginning to translate into various active pilots or projects, empowering transit through transit priority with Greta Express bus routes through Midtown and downtown Atlanta, moving freight not seen in this map, improving ingress, egress through the ports down in Savannah for various trucking companies, improving emergency response by utilizing connected vehicle technology for preemption for first responders at various locations. And then again, getting this technology into the hands of local governments for their own education, for their own use, as they look to sort of get into this next frontier of transportation technology. So specifically on the regional program that came out of the regional TSMO effort, we contemplated a structure here to really pull the region and pull local governments into the conversation from a CV perspective. And ARC was kind enough to fund with federal aid dollars the cost of this program at an 80% or essentially the federal aid match level through their urban attributable funds. So they were able to put up the dollars to fund this program, and locals can buy in essentially by just providing the matching dollars, the 20% matching dollars. So based upon bids through a competitive RFP for developing a turnkey solution for this, if a local wants to quote buy into this program, they're talking about $1,600 per intersection is what we would ask for. And we would enter into a direct agreement with the locals to deploy on their behalf and stand up this connectivity on their behalf and get them engaged in the program. It's a multi-phase, multi-year program targeting 1,000 intersections that just started late last year, and we are already up to 722 proposed intersections as of late February, and you can see the participating local governments that have already signed on to the program there on the map on the right. Again, this is targeting a regional level of baseline connectivity, but ultimately the value comes into how do we translate that baseline connectivity into specific use cases for improved mobility, safety, targeting again locally needed use cases, getting into sort of specific granular areas to say how do we use this technology to help this situation. So we've seen tremendous momentum behind this program. I think driving it at the regional level and developing it at the regional level and having that interaction with locals in the region as it was being contemplated has helped to spur this into very quick implementation. These locations are having radios deployed already. We've got executed agreements and things are starting to get out into the field. So very exciting to see the pace behind this effort. And then on the other, real quick, just getting into the data acquisition working group, again, sort of spurring from the regional TSMO effort. The intent here is to, as you see on the screen, find synergistic opportunities to lower data costs, enhance data analytics and the capabilities of that, and eliminate unnecessary duplication from data. We did some quick analysis in just looking at what GDOT is spending, what ARC is spending, what other agencies are spending from a data perspective, and found that if we can just eliminate unnecessary duplication, we can have tremendous savings across the region just by sharing what we're already buying at minimum. The other thing is trying to be more effective at storing information and having easy access to data so that we are not repeatedly procuring the same thing over and over, right? If you buy data that meets a need in 2021, we want to make sure that somebody else isn't doing that again in 2022. So it's really about communication and collaboration, again, fed directly from the regional TSMO effort. So the group has been formed, and you can see on the screen just sort of the memo that I drafted to our chief engineer to approve this working group. We have since developed an interagency program charter and identified a funding plan to help pay for sort of regional data needs, and have developed guidelines and policy recommendations for data acquisition and sort of bylaws for this group. This is how the group is formed. So they do have a formal structure, primarily consisting of the Atlanta Regional Commission and 3 voting members, and Georgia DOT and 3 voting members across various offices. So you can see the Office of Planning, my office, Traffic Operations, and the Transportation Data. But we're also pulling in local agencies, the State Road and Toll Authority, other GDOT offices, other ARC teams, to understand the needs that they might have, so that as we work to be more efficient in regards to managing our data, we're not inadvertently cutting something off to the detriment of somebody else. So here, that's kind of the structure of the group. And then finally, just to give you guys an idea of how do we get our arms around the data that folks need, we did a survey for this working group, and you can see the various groups across the top, the various data sets down the left there, and what folks have, what they need, or what they want. And then how do we sort of mash all that together and come out with sort of one holistic data set as a region to say, okay, this as a region is what we're doing from a data perspective. This is going to make us more efficient. This is going to eliminate duplicates. And it's going to essentially get our arms around regional data from a governance perspective. So those are the 2 things I wanted to quickly talk about. So appreciate the time this morning. Thank you.
Awesome. Sorry about the technical difficulties there earlier. I did read your bio, Andrew, I promise. But it looks like I lost connectivity for whatever reason. Next, we have Faisal Salim. Faisal serves the Maricopa County Department of Transportation as Intelligent Transportation Systems Branch Manager and the MCDOT Smart Drive Program Manager. He is responsible for the overall supervision and management of MCDOT and AZ Tech ITS projects, Regional Emergency Action Coordinating Teams, which is REACT, Incident Management Program, MCDOT Traffic Management Center, the Anthem Connected Vehicle Smart Drive Test Bed, and Regional Archived Data System. He also serves as the chair of the Technical Resources Working Group of the Cooperative Automated Transportation, or CAT, Coalition. Salim has a bachelor's and master's degree in civil engineering and is the former president of Intelligent Transportation Society of Arizona and a member of ITE. Faisal?
Thank you, Melissa. Can you hear me? Can you see my screen? Just to confirming?
Yes.
Okay, good. Thank you. And good morning, everybody. It's really a pleasure and honor to be here and sharing about our Aztec program, which is our regional operations partnerships in the Phoenix metro area. We are going to soon celebrate our 25th anniversary, so we're excited about that. So just a little bit about Maricopa County. It's located in Arizona. It is a pretty large county, 4th largest in the United States, and we have about 24 cities and towns within the county. We also have 5 Indian communities. So back in 1996, when we were starting, and it is also one of the fastest growing counties. So we had these rural buffers, but we realized that with the growth, these are going to go away, and we need to integrate the regional system. So we applied for a federal grant, and at that time, we were selected as one of the 4 model deployment initiatives of the connected vehicle technologies. So we're proud of that, and through that, we established the Aztec organization with a mission, as I said, to integrate the regional intelligent transportation systems infrastructure through a public-private partnership as a national model. And the goal is to provide seamless transportation for the public across these jurisdictional boundaries within the Phoenix metro area. Our partnership today has 24 members. We have 15 cities and towns, Federal Highway Administration, our MPO. It is led by Arizona Department of Transportation and Maricopa County Department of Transportation. Partnership also includes public safety agencies, Department of Public Safety, as well as some police representatives, Phoenix International Airport, public transit agencies, and state universities. Our focus is traffic management and operations. So the MPO is responsible for the long-range planning. We focus on TISMA. This is our current organization structure. We have an executive committee that directs the policies of the Aztec organization. And we have a strategic steering committee, which guides the executive committee, responsible for developing Aztec plans, performance measures, action plans, initiatives, things like that. And then we have these task force and other committees. So the very interesting committee that we have is Media and Communications Task Force that collaborates with the media for traveler information, and it includes the public information officers. Our operations committee is focused more on the technical side of things. So from the back in late 90s, just to understand what ITS is, and they kind of led the deployment of our smart corridors, and now very involved in new technologies like connected vehicles. There is a group which is just operators group, which is called Traffic Management Center Operators Working Group. One of the key things that they do, because their routine jobs really limit them for attending a lot of meetings. So one of the things that has been of value to this group is taking the tours, demos. Every 2 months, they go and visit another traffic management center or operations center, whether it's airport or TMC or a police dispatch centers, and they learn from each other. And that helps in the networking too between the operators. We have a Traffic Incident Management Coalition, and this one includes both the freeway TIM teams as well as arterial TIM teams. And as we speak, we are actually on April 1st launching a new group, which is the ITS and Signal Technicians Task Force. Just a quick history at a glance. So the earlier part we launched in 1996, and that was the model deployment initiative phase. That's where we established the partnerships, but that's where we were kind of testing ITS technologies, like we are testing connected vehicles now, just understanding how the ITS work. Then in the 2003, we finished the model deployment phase, and we mainstream these technologies that were more of a pilots and model deployment. So that's where we kind of build the communications network. So we developed something which is very useful right now is regional community network. So that's a fiber backbone that is shared by the partners. And we also build the data backbone at the same time. So we have regional archive data system. We ingest a variety of data in the system, 911 data, sensors data, work zones, third-party data, and construction type of information. So yeah, so we bring all that data into a central location, and that's where it is provided back to the partners as information. So we can integrate freeway and arterial data and provide some integrated information. We also have feeds that goes out to the public and the media. So it has been a really very strong asset from a center viewpoint, building the data foundation. And we did not on purpose do any governance. It is built on trust and handshake. So which has worked for us actually. And then we kind of pivoted into more of operations, and now getting into more into integrated corridor management. We have a major ICM project going on, which was founded on the work that Aztec has been doing for a long time. So when we tipped into full operations in 2009, we identified these focus areas so that the partnership can focus on these 7 key areas. I don't want to read it, it's there. So focus on traveler information, performance measures, telling the story to the upper management, integrating the incident management. That's kind of launched our TIM coalition, leveraging regional infrastructure as Giorgio was talking about. Same thing, why reinvent the wheel if we have infrastructure that we can make use of? Data is a good example. Create seamless operations, yes, for a traveler. as they cross from one jurisdiction to another, we want them to experience seamless operations. And then finally, the workforce has been a key focus for Aztec. So we do develop operations implementation plans. These are developed every 5 years. I think Atlanta, that's kind of we are using the same 5-year approach. We call them implementation plans because, as I said, the MPO is doing the long-range planning, and Aztec is more focused on the implementation side of things, implementation of TISMO. So that's our 5-year plans, and they're all available on the website if you want to take a look at them. This is really a 30,000 feet look at implementation. Then following the implementation plan, we develop action plans, and very similar to what Atlanta was saying, planning to do. We have these initiatives which are then assigned to each committee takes on these initiatives. So it's, for example, the business case is the executive committee, and there are some other initiatives that are captured in the action plan. And then each of these action plan have descriptions, more detailed descriptions that we keep for tracking purposes. One of the things we do is capability maturity model using the Federal Highway Administration. This is to assess the effectiveness of our operations. We have done it 3 or 4 times. We started doing it in 2010, and we do it on the 6 dimensions of the CMM model, which is on the left, and then we measure where we are on the levels. So essentially, level 1 is least organized and more individual focus, and level 4 is fully optimized and I think very high level of collaboration and integration. So in 2019, that was our last CMM. We have moved the needle. I mean, early on 2009, we were mostly on level 1, and we see now ourselves at level 3. We also publish performance indicators book. And this is our tool of telling our story. So these books they have a dashboard, and many agencies do that. So we do that. We capture like travel time, incident management. But I think we engage our local partners in telling their story. So if there is a major initiative they did in the year or two, we bring that story, and then this story is published in the website, and we share with our partners, and they take it to the elected officials and their executives. So that's how we kind of spread the word of TISMO and activities within the Aztec organization. So that's all I had as an introduction, and look forward to hearing from others and learning from others.
Thanks very much, Faisal.
You're welcome.
Now, last but not least, we have Brandon Watson. Brandon Watson is a transportation planner with the North Carolina Capital Area MPO, working as a project manager on various studies throughout Campo's planning area. Brandon most recently worked as a transit planner, and before that as a transportation analyst in the crash program in traffic engineering for the city of Raleigh. He will be the project manager for the new Western Wake traffic signal system integration study that just kicked off.
Thanks, Melissa. Let's see. Are you able to see my screen?
Coming up now. There it is. Yes.
Perfect. All right. Yeah, so like Melissa said, I'm Brandon Watson with the North Carolina Capital Area Metropolitan Planning Organization, or CAMPO. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about our new Western Wake traffic signal system integration study. And we're actually just starting this regional integration study. So we're kind of at the beginning of the process. CAMPO is a federally mandated and funded transportation policy making organization tasked with carrying out a transportation planning process that includes all modes, That's continuing, cooperative, and comprehensive. And this is specifically within the central capital area of North Carolina. The boundary includes all of Wake County, where Raleigh is located, and parts of Franklin, Granville, Harnett, and Johnston counties, as well as the jurisdictions within there. Campo had a combined population of about 1.27 million as of 2017. So before diving into Campo's current ITS integration study, I wanted to give a quick background. Back in 2019, Campo partnered with the Durham Chapel Hill Carborough MPO, NCDOT, the Federal Highway Administration, and the Federal Transit Administration to update the Triangle Region ITS Strategic Deployment Plan. And the update was to provide a framework for near-term, midterm, and long-term, going up to 10 years from the present, deployment of ITS technologies to enhance efficiency and sustainability of the regional transportation system. The update utilized feedback from stakeholders in the region, including local, municipal, NCDOT, and transit operator staff. And they held large stakeholder group meetings as well as small group stakeholder interviews. The major efforts of the study were to update the regional ITS architecture, assess current ITS deployment, and identify gaps between current conditions and goals, and assess the current state of the practice and emerging technologies. We also wanted to identify deployment recommendations. So through all of those activities, 42 action items were identified, and 2 of those included continuing to develop municipal agreements to consolidate municipal traffic signal systems, and then also to establish a regional task force and a working group intent on ITS deployment in the region. So through Campo's annual work program for the fiscal year 21 last year, which outlines the planning efforts the MPO will undertake each year, the need was identified for a regional ITS study focusing on Western Wake County communities specifically. So you can see here those Western communities in Campo's region, and transitioning all of these signal systems in the area into a regional program. Major changes anticipated in the area that brought this need include new ITS projects funded in the State Transportation Improvement Program, which is going to lead to a more robust connected fiber optic network in the area, and then an increase in coordinated traffic signal systems, which will bring improved compatibility across all of these various municipal boundaries. Transit vehicle preemption, which is coming with a BRT corridor that's currently under development in the area, and that'll go from Raleigh to Cary. And then, like everywhere, new autonomous and connected vehicle technologies. As you can see, Morrisville here, there are signals that aren't already maintained by Cary, which many signals in Morrisville are owned by NCDOT, but are already on the Cary system. But those that aren't are needed to be brought into Cary's advanced traffic management system, as well as there being a need to study analyzing broader implementation of a regional signal ITS system, including Morrisville and Cary, and also potentially the rest of these communities, which include Apex, Holly Springs, and Fuquay-Varina. So our objectives for the study are based on regionalizing ITS in the area, while also documenting and providing guidance for future ITS system integration for other areas of Campo's region. Targeted stakeholder outreach and coordination is going to be really important. We're dealing with a lot of municipalities here, and then NCDOT maintains many of the signals in the area. So there are at least 400 signals within the study area. So an infrastructure evaluation of all signal systems will be closely coordinated with NCDOT, including at an operational and long-term maintenance level. We'll also be examining the need for additional traffic management centers. The evaluation will include potential fiber optic infrastructure connections, software assessments, user access needs, and security and hardware considerations. Peer reviews of recent signal system integrations in order to apply best practices to the study area and Campo's region will also follow. The study will also result in guidance outlining the implementation steps for integrating all of Morrisville's signal system into Cary's existing ATMS, while also noting any additional steps or studies needed for the future integration of Apex, Holly Springs, and Fuquay-Varina traffic signal systems into potentially one Western Wake traffic system. Detailed guidance, including a guidebook, will help to provide a blueprint for how the process could be replicated with other jurisdictions in the region as regionalization of ITS is explored further in CAMPA. Funding opportunities will also be reviewed, including all currently funded ITS STIP projects, and then what else may be needed for full implementation of a Western Wake system. Other funding opportunities will also be explored and a prioritization and funding plan established to go along with the implementation, operations, and maintenance plans. Strategic projects are going to also be identified to be entered into consideration of the state's prioritization process. And then last year, any necessary agreements between municipalities or NCDOT, they'll be documented and suggested templates will be created for potential future ITS regionalization projects. So where are we now? The project, through an RFP process, the project was awarded to Exalt Engineering as a lead consultant with Kimley Horn and Dewberry. And then as far as stakeholders, we're preparing for 3 groups here. A core technical team will be comprised of staff from each municipality and NCDOT tasked with guiding the project with the more technical aspects of the implementation plan, including that infrastructure and systems evaluation and the guidebook and municipal agreement development. We'll also be having a study oversight team, which will include other municipal staff, so manager type level, and other stakeholders in the area to help guide key decision points in the process. And they'll be focusing on the more overarching goals of ITS within the region and the coordination between the jurisdictions and department, also those departments within those jurisdictions. And then last, a regional ITS working group will be stood up. The origination of this group comes from that regional ITS plan update I was talking about earlier, so that we can have an ITS working group that meets regularly and continues after this initial project to review and discuss ITS and signal system standards from a regional perspective. The group will include subject matter experts from the study area, as well as from other municipalities with ITS infrastructure in the region, including the DCHC MPO, City of Raleigh, and NCDOT. So the project team just kicked off in February and is currently working on data collection and existing field infrastructure, TMC, software, and user access evaluation. And then work on the peer review of similar system integrations from other areas has also began, and that'll include interviews to gather feedback on the signal system integration process. And our first core technical team meeting is actually coming up next week on Thursday, so we are really looking forward to getting started on this. Thank you.
Great. All right. Thanks, Brandon. Okay. So I don't see any questions in the chat. Maybe we need to warm you guys up. So I've got a couple of questions here ready to go. So panelists, how did you get to be involved in regionalization? Let's start with Maria.
Well, as an MPO, it's kind of our whole thing.
Yeah.
But we had been out of the operations planning side of it for a while, and saw that there was a lot of technology going on. There was a lot of projects happening at our local jurisdictions, and started thinking about the fact that there could be some really big struggles with interoperational devices and going through all of that. So we wanted to do a study basically and have a plan set up for how to better coordinate all of that throughout, make sure there weren't any huge gaps throughout the region. And I think we are on our way to doing that.
Okay, great. Thank you. How about anything to add on that, Andrew?
Well, I'll just kind of jump in and say, I think that, the regional level, like an MPO, plays a very important role when it comes to transportation technology or operational strategies, things of that nature. I think that governments in general are looking at these new technologies, these new strategies, and saying that looks like something I want to do. I could realize benefits from that very quickly. I could probably do it in sort of a turnkey manner and have immediate impact to the traveling public from either a mobility and safety perspective. And we were certainly seeing that and continue to see that in the Metro Atlanta region, where we have local governments that really want to kind of get engaged in these technologies. And I think with ARC stepping into sort of that regional role, that coordination role, I think it's already paying dividends in guiding the region in sort of a common direction as to what we're doing, how we're doing it, how we're going to pay for it, what's it going to look like, and how do we make sure that one area of the region doesn't go running off in one direction and then another area goes running off in a different direction, and you've got all these disparate systems that don't really function well together. So I think the regional TISMO effort that ARC did and that GDOT participated in was sorely needed. And I think that we're already seeing sort of the fruits of that labor to kind of bring the region together just from a coordination perspective and say, okay, guys, let's all move forward in this direction and sort of have common purpose, common drive as to what we're trying to accomplish.
Great. How about Faisal? How did you get involved in regionalization?
I think, as I said, back then, as our region is growing, fastest growing region in the United States, we have these 24 cities and towns. And if you think about the traveler, and a traveler doesn't care, whether they are in Phoenix or Chandler or Mesa or Tempe or Maricopa County. I mean, they need a seamless transportation, and I think there's been a lot of good talk about signal coordination. So that's as simple as doing signal coordination. But I think that goal kind of triggered it, and then we applied for the grant, and that helped us create this regional collaboration. But I think the other very important goal at that time was traveler information. And this is the time when there is no Google Maps, and we were the ones who were generating all the data and providing to the private sector. So we created public-private partnership, and we deployed kiosks and other tools for travel information all across the state. So yeah, I think those two were kind of the triggers for regionalization for us.
Okay, great. Thank you. How about you, Brandon? Anything to add?
Yeah, so I think Maria kind of hit on the MPO perspective really well. I would just add that with the capital region here around Raleigh, we're growing so fast, so we're really seeing how important these regional conversations are. We recently had we have our Wake Transit that's also planning some BRT corridors in the region as well, which I touched on earlier. So being able to have those regional conversations at the MPO level in these smaller area studies and special studies, like this Western Wake study, where we can all get in one room and have some more deeper local planning, is really important.
Okay. Well, while you're speaking, the next question I have is, what is the greatest advantage to regionalization? This is that you've experienced, but I guess maybe you haven't quite experienced it yet, but maybe you can talk about what you expect. Brandon. Sorry. I was going to pick on you already.
Yeah. So I think I would say the greatest advantage would probably be just decreasing those silos. When you have so many municipalities and jurisdictions in one area, when you sit down and have these conversations about regionalizing ITS or bringing multiple signal systems into one signal system, for example, you get everyone in the same room to talk about ITS specifically, but other issues come up that you're able to talk about. And it's really where the good ideas are born to improve the area or even a specific corridor.
Okay, great. How about you, Faisal? What is the greatest advantage to regionalization that you've experienced?
I think for us, for our partners, it has been knowledge sharing and networking. That so especially for smaller agencies that they don't have the resources, they're like one or two people just doing everything. So they learn a lot from these bigger agencies, from their experiences. We publish white papers. We regularly have trainings going on. We have some sessions on different topics of like signals, the connected vehicles, ICMs. So the learning has been probably one of the very strong benefit of collaboration. I think the other thing is the leveraging the assets. So we can do some regional projects like Maricopa County can provide all the backbone of project management, getting the project going. We have done this like in adaptive signals, worked with like 8 agencies putting adaptive systems together, but we provide that kind of project management support, assets like data exchange, I mentioned about that. So communications networks, so sharing those assets and sharing knowledge and training probably are the 2 most beneficial things for us.
Okay, great, thank you. How about you, Andrew? What is the greatest advantage that you've experienced?
Well, I probably sound like a broken record, but it is that coordination and collaboration and sort of that back end work that goes into building out a cohesive regional system, whether it's on the signal side or ITS side or what have you. But the greatest benefit is when all of that comes to a head and you start to realize it, especially in times of like emergency operations and significant regional events, that it makes your response that much more cohesive as a state and a region and how you're tackling that. And, you know, my mind goes back to the I-85 bridge collapse that we faced 4 years ago and how the region had to respond to that, and that a lot of the back end work from a regionalization perspective came into not just GDOT's response, but how the region responded to that and tackling the immediate traffic shift that occurred as a result of that, or how we planned for and implemented the traffic management plan and response plan for the Super Bowl that we hosted in Atlanta a few years ago, where from my perspective, it was a tremendous success where the city and the region responded to that event, had the back end infrastructure in place, had the plan in place as a group, and were able to implement on that. I think that just sort of speaks to the regional approach, the coordination and collaboration that had been stood up over the years, and allowed us to be successful in those very targeted specific events.
Okay, great. Maria, you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I think everyone touched on the collaboration piece, which is certainly one of the biggest benefits of even starting the planning of it. But I think to build off that, the collaboration often creates opportunities. So we have been able to leverage some of those opportunities, like in creating the Regional Connected Vehicle Program with GDOT, or the Joint Data Purchasing Program with GDOT, has been 2 huge moves for the region that I don't know that without that plan we would have really realized, at least at the level that they are. So I think being able to seize the opportunities that come out of that collaboration is pretty great.
Okay, great. Thanks, guys. I'm starting to get some questions now. So from Byron Engel, for regionalizing an area, is it more to ensure similar ITS equipment is used or sharing of information?
Melissa, I can start on that one.
Okay, sure.
So in our region, all the agencies are independent and they operate their own systems. So in other words, they have their own equipment and their own software. We have taken a peer-to-peer approach, and that's where I think this regionalization becomes really important, because we don't have centralized operations. So in our case, it's more about knowledge sharing, more about integration. So we don't influence the agencies to buy this or that equipment. You know, we try to integrate with whatever they have. So I'll give you an example also of how we share the work zone data. So we tried some tools like everybody can use and everybody can input data, but we quickly ran into the issue of double entries, because they have their own systems, and then we are imposing that on another system to them to enter the data. Did not work out. So then we changed the course and we said, you give us the information from whatever way you do it. A smaller agency could be as simple as Excel spreadsheet, and then there could be some sophisticated SLR type systems. And then we kind of at the center curate the data and make it into a national standard and push it to public. Same with the equipment. So yeah, we are very decentralized and don't influence the agency on the equipment.
Okay, anybody else?
Yeah, and from a GDOT perspective, a little bit different. I'd simply answer the question by saying both. But as we don't necessarily influence local agencies, or we don't tell local agencies to go one way or the other. But we have had a number of sort of standardization efforts across from an equipment perspective, and we influence locals by making it available for free. Years ago, we had a standardization around 2070 controllers on the signal side that we made those upgrades available for free for locals. Similarly, and more recently, we standardized on the signal software side by contracting with Keyfree Intelight, and we bought enough licenses for every signal in the state of Georgia on system or off system and made it available to locals for free. So we didn't tell them they had to use it, but obviously when you offer it up at no cost, that attracts them to use it. And then we can kind of standardize across that level. But I think from a data perspective too, it's that almost becomes more important. It's one thing to have standard equipment, standard software, but if you're not sharing information, pushing plans consistently across the region, you're not going to be successful. So I think from our perspective, it's a little bit of both. Both become very important.
Okay. Anybody? Maria or Brandon?
Yeah, so I would add too, I'm definitely in agreement about both are extremely important. And I think it probably would depend on who you ask too. We're trying to write the scope for this new signal system integration project. We really grapple with this question a lot. And yeah, it really came down to who you ask, and I think both are important, and this is one of the reasons why we're trying to set up that regional ITS working group within the region to be able to, have that sharing of information, but also discuss the technical aspects of, who's using what equipment and how we can regionalize those standards too.
Okay, great. All right, next question. How do you ensure that technicians and operators across each region receive the same level of training and achieve the same quality of infrastructure maintenance and reliability? Andrew?
Well, I don't know that you can. You can try through, on the GDOT side, we certainly try to do that through resource support, kind of going back to the signal side and our SIGOPS program, what we previously called our RTOP program, where what it really comes down to is a resource support effort from the state to the region and to local governments for experts in signal timing, experts in signal maintenance, signal technicians, signal engineers, that whole group to say, here's how we can provide the region this level of resource, right? So it's not just necessarily putting dollars towards it, but it's putting expertise towards the problem, putting that sort of in-kind resource towards the problem, and then supporting those programs as a state with the appropriate training programs to make sure you've got an adequate pool of those individuals to try to tackle the problem. So I think that's one way to do it from a personnel and training perspective. Obviously, industry has to respond in having those individuals available. The academic world has to respond to bring those people through our various institutions in the region. So that's obviously a challenge too, but that's one way from a DOT side to try to get there. I think the same on the maintenance side. GDOT, we have a very aggressive maintenance program on the ITS side. It's a pay for performance program where we pay for devices being up essentially. If they're working, we'll pay for it. If they're not, we won't. That's gotten us a high level of performance across our system, but it doesn't necessarily translate down to locally maintained devices or locally maintained signals. So again, one way that we can try to support that again is to provide resources. So through those same programs, we supplement our maintenance efforts with dollars, essentially to push money towards just maintenance efforts at the local level to try to keep the systems in some sort of state of good repair. But that's certainly a big challenge, and it's certainly a challenge for industry or for transportation as a whole to understand that need. Again, at any time you put a new device out there, anytime you put a new signal out there, you've got an O&M commitment that you have to understand as an agency. So that's a fight that we continue to fight here in Georgia as well. And to Kelly's question that just popped up, we have a statewide ITS contractor that maintains devices for us. So they part of the competitive process, the procurement process was essentially bid pricing on keeping devices up and how much the state would pay for uptime of that device. So the ITS contractor is fully responsible for keeping it up and running and get directly invoiced, get paid by the department for doing so.
Great, thanks, Andrew. Faisal, did you want to add something?
Yeah, sure. So I think for training, we see a value in partnerships. So we work with like ITS America, ITS Arizona, ITE. We have worked, Federal Highway has been very helpful to us in organizing peer-to-peer exchange. And I think what was really interesting of that is that with their help, we have brought in some of the peer agencies who have been working with some vendors on some new technologies. So we get to hear both from the agency side and the vendor side. So we have done that for our adaptive systems, and that's how we learn a lot. So I think partnering with organizations like NOCO and others, Federal Highway and IT and ITS America has been very helpful in building those training programs. One of the things that to achieve the quality of the infrastructure, especially data, I think we are embarking on something called TISMO Lab, and we are developing a concept and we're designing it right now. I mean, think about the program, the road construction program, and they had this materials lab to make sure that the materials are of high quality and good and maintained. We believe that I think time has come for a TISMO lab, and we are kind of building that as we speak. So just starting with, right now we're doing the design for that.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Very good. Maria, did you have something to add?
Yeah, just from a planning perspective, we like to remind people how important it is to think about maintenance on the outset before you even purchase any new kind of technology. And additionally, to include your IT people in the conversation earlier, because a lot of issues with your technology working right can sometimes be traced back to the fact that IT didn't even know you bought it. So things like that are really important from the outset of a project before you need to start that maintenance.
Okay, great, thank you. All right. Who led the effort to start regionalization, and who is responsible for keeping the machine running? Anybody?
In case of Aztec, it was really the visionary leadership at that time from ADOT and McDOT leaders who had the foresight to see what is coming. And they were, I would say, very visionary, because we wouldn't be here without their vision. And then they applied for that grant. In terms of who keeps it running, it's ADOT and McDOT. We are collaboratively running. We have dedicated staff to support the organization. So we have agency staff members who do all the back-end work, and we also, consultants are very important, and we have consultant support. that helps us prepare those action plans and performance indicators book, white papers. So it's a combination of lead agency and consultant, I would say.
Okay, very good. Maria?
So for our planning effort, of course, that ITS architecture really needed updating. So there wasn't really a question of whether we had to do that. And we did have some internal folks at ARC. I don't know if anyone knows Kofi Wahisi, but he has always been a very big proponent of ARC getting more into the operations planning space. So he was one of the reasons we set that plan to be so all-encompassing. And who keeps it running is technically my job.
Yeah.
But thankfully, I have really great partners at the state, like Andrew, who are really dedicated to seeing it through as well. So we just are trying to keep the momentum up at this point.
Okay, great. Anybody else? Brandon?
Yeah, I'll add, from my perspective, it's, you know, can
Andrew?
point to a number of different things for different programs or different events. You know, our top program that a lot of folks are familiar with dates back now over a decade, and was really a group of individuals at GDOT that, kind of like Faisal's experience, had some strong vision as to where they wanted to go from a regional perspective, and push that program along, got it started. And it's really kind of transitioned over time from not just a GDOT program to, again, truly a regional effort, you know, primarily funded by GDOT, but operated by the state, locals, and heavily supported by industry. They're really kind of the nuts and bolts that keep the whole thing moving. So I think it's sort of naturally grown, but I think you could kind of point to any number of regional efforts, and there's generally some champion behind it, or some event or something that occurred to spur the creation of something. So I think as folks are looking to embark on these efforts, the identification of those individuals that can really help to drive it is what you need. Otherwise, it's easy to kind of lose track of and fall by the wayside.
Yeah. Okay. Brandon, did you want to add something there?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, ours, as far as starting the regionalization, really came about from that ITS strategic deployment plan update that we did back in 2019. So, and really, it just came from, you know, there's a strong need here in the region with how fast it's growing, to have some kind of ITS signal system integration. We've got 4 BRT corridors coming, and a lot of different transportation roadway projects that will have some kind of ITS components incorporated. So that regional coordination was identified. And then as far as keeping the machine running, you know, this project was born from, we have a call for projects every year for our planning work program, and one of the local jurisdictions submitted this. So, you know, they're keeping us headed in the right direction and making sure we're forward thinking.
Okay. So is there one person, and will that person be from Campo that would be maybe the champion in the Triangle region, or how do you think that'll?
Good question. Right now, yes, I'll be the project manager for this one ITS integration study. And then we're hoping to use this study to explore the option in other areas of the region. And we have a few different transportation planners, so it could be any one of us, but we're excited for this first one though.
Seems like you're the volunteer since you're the PM.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, everybody, if you had to do it again, what would you change about the process to regionalize, or the programs and services provided? Anybody have anything to add to that?
Melissa, this is Faisal. So it may sound a little backward, but I think if we have to do differently, we would have started with an operations plan. So understand how the playing field of operations and the people processes are really important. You don't, I mean, we quickly dive into technology and we talk about all these gizmos, but we lose sight of what people actually do and what are their gaps and what are their limitations and what are their needs. So understanding that, whether you're doing a gizmo project or you're doing this regional collaboration, bring people first. And then I think we waited like 7, 8, 9 years before we did our first operations plan. On the hindsight, we should have done it a lot sooner to capture, like we identified these focus areas. I mean, it was in 2009, partnership expand in 1996. I mean, so what do people want? What do these smaller agencies want? And so how we can all then contribute to their gaps and needs.
So you guys started with, like you said, the backbone, you know, the fiber, and then also the data. I mean, I'm sure, so your advice would be to have that plus the people, right? To have those backbones and the operations and the people.
Yes.
So what
Right.
you're gonna
Right.
do with it.
So even if you're doing data, for example, before you even start talking about what data, and talk about people's, because like I said, you know, we try to say, okay, here is a tool, use it. You know, it didn't work. It didn't work out.
Yeah.
So instead of that, we should have gone, you know, we said, how do you do that? And it would have shared the challenges, you know, we have this system, we can't do other thing. And we could have saved that, all that effort and all the whole effort that went and didn't work out. So.
And gotcha. Yeah. All right. Anybody else have something if you were to do it again?
I'll make just a quick point. It sounds silly, but just kind of point to the whole notion that planned things or scheduled things actually happen. You know, going back to the ARC regional plan that was done just a couple of years ago, we have already seen these major efforts kick off from a CV perspective or a data perspective. Those efforts could have kicked off in the past, but they didn't because we didn't have a plan in place to do it, and we hadn't all come together to talk about it. So I think that one of the things that we are now in alignment with in a region is that formal structure regionally, including the MPO, to help drive these things. We weren't there in the past. I think GDOT was going it alone a little bit, say, let's get into this, let's get into that. And we were having successes in doing so. But I think pulling in our MPO partner and them stepping into sort of a leadership role on the coordination side is critically important because we've seen these efforts just sort of get, you know, doubled down on, so to speak. And now we have this formal structure with a formal group that's meeting. I think we're only going to kind of continue to see that progress. So it's just very important to think about, as a region, do we have the structure in place that reaches across both the planning side and the operations and maintenance side? Are the right folks on both sides of that table coming together as a group to talk about these issues, to identify these regional efforts? Because that's how you get it done. Otherwise, again, you kind of end out in alignment. You might have some successes here, but failures there, and you move forward sort of fits and starts. So that would be my suggestion or my do-over, so to speak, looking at years past.
Okay, great. All right. Thank you. Okay, we're gonna, our next question is, do you have any funny stories about your experience?
A lot of funny stories, but I think that I think we should celebrate and bring fun in the regionalization. Our members are volunteers. They are. There is no IGA, and they all on a handshake. They are on trust. They see a greater good, and they participate. They're very active, and so our meetings are not so formal. We do take minutes. We have everything, and we talk about all the good stuff. But we laugh a lot, and you know, we can pull each other a little bit here and there. So, and then part of it is also some of the significant milestones. If you're completing something, if you're hitting like 5-year make sure you celebrate and bring the people who have contributed so much to your organization. They're not your staff members, they're not your employees, they're there for greater good. Make sure they're recognized, and yeah. So
Nice.
Yeah.
That's great.
Mhm.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I don't
Brandon?
think.
Oh, Maria.
Oh, I don't think we have any good anecdotes, but I really like that, Faisal. I think that's really important to just be with each other in a like camaraderie a little bit, because that can help get the work done easier as well. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, it makes it, yeah, like you said, and just some camaraderie and build those relationships so that communication can happen a little easier, a little better. That's great. Yeah. Anybody else? Brandon, do you have any funny stories about procurement?
Yeah, I would say not yet, since we're just beginning.
Yeah.
But yeah, I definitely that was good to hear from Faisal as well. Definitely
Yeah.
took some notes on how to, as we do working groups and everything. I think that's going to be really important. So
Just get David Spencer to entertain you guys for a little while.
yeah,
So.
exactly.
Andrew, anything to add? No?
I'm from a state DOT. We're not funny.
I did see you start to smile a little bit, so that was good. That was good.
I was surprised Maria didn't have something. She's always got something.
She probably is like, what can I share?
Right.
Outside of the state of Georgia.
Yeah, what happens in the room stays in the room.
There you go. There you go. All right. I have a couple more here. Feedback you've received from the public and or elected officials regarding your programs.
Well, I'll just jump in and
Okay.
toot our own horn a little bit. I think that our feedback has been very strong. I think that our various regional programs like RTOP, SIGOPS, our new connected vehicle programs are gaining notoriety, so to speak, or gaining attention, both regionally and nationally. I think the importance of that is that we started early on a lot of these things and we kept at it. So consistency behind it, continued growth, continued evolution of the programs, I think only gains that buy-in on the public official side or just the general public side, because they see the benefit of it. They may not directly associate it with that effort, but it has become the new normal for them, realization of those benefits. An example of this may not necessarily be a regional effort, but I kind of point to our incident management program, HERO, that started 25 years ago and has kind of become a historied program for us. It's our service patrol on the interstates, that it doesn't have to exist, right? That program doesn't have to be there. There's a mandate that requires it. There's nothing like that, but it's become expected because of the benefit they provide, that the public expects it, elected officials expect it. And if we were to take it away, the reaction would be terrible. And it's just kind of grown, and that's just been the natural evolution of the program. And that's beginning to occur as well. It may not be as upfront or as apparent, but from a signal perspective. And I think as we get into a connected vehicle perspective, if we're deliberate, consistent, and we keep at it, that buy-in will be there and will continue to grow. And then it'll be, no, you can't take this away from us. We like it too much, so to speak. So our feedback has been very positive.
Great. Anybody else?
This is Faisal. So as you see, one of our focus areas was to tell our story to the elected officials.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's, for us, it almost feels like you have to do something to get that feedback. You just can't expect that you will get a feedback. Like Andrew was saying, I mean, you have this great HERO program, is nationally known. But in our case, I think so. The tool we use is Performance Indicators book, And that's where we kept it to very simple language, telling our stories. And then we channelize it through the public information groups, to reach to the executives and to elected officials. But it is up to the agency to take it forward. So we just have it on the website, or we distribute it to our partners, and then they take it and they use it as a tool to tell our story. And these are all good stories, so that they learn about it and they can share with them and get the feedback. Also, this group that we have established, the Media and Communications Task Force, they annually organize a lunch forum, and they of course the media is involved, and we bring some executives too. And through that, I think we are able to talk about some of the key things that we are doing in TISMO, and collaboratively what's going on. So some of those tools have been very effective for us.
Okay, great. Maria, you were going to add something?
Yeah, I was going to say, as a planner, a lot of our work is behind the scenes.
Yeah.
I really liked how Andrew said, you know, there might not be a public like cheer for a new operations plan, but when you take it away, they'll notice and they'll be mad.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of the best way to gauge how you're doing publicly. But of course, a lot of elected officials get excited about technology, and when you have big overarching programs that incorporate more technology deployments, and especially on a level that things like our regional connected vehicle program are doing, you get a lot of good feedback from them on that kind of thing.
Well, that's good. It's not just a no news is good news type of thing. Yeah. Okay. Brandon.
Yeah, so I would add to coming from a planner's perspective here too, we at Campo, we have a variety of different studies that we do in small area studies, and then our transit program too. So we do public engagement periods where we take public feedback on the various aspects of the different projects, and there's always comments about something to do with ITS, or asking about the signal timing within a corridor, how we're going to incorporate connected and autonomous vehicles in a certain area. So, you know, we try to answer those questions the best we can. And then I think something else to note is we have a joint MPO board that meets between our executive board and the Durham Chapel Hill Carborough executive board. And we meet, I think, once or twice yearly, and they have some policy priorities. And then one of those this past meeting that they had was to kind of bring that, to establish that regional ITS working group, go ahead and get that up and running. That was one of their priorities. So it's very important to the elected officials in the region as well.
Okay, great. Thanks, Brandon. We have another audience question now. Has being regional helped in getting funds for programs and projects? Maria?
I think it definitely has, from our perspective, especially at an MPO where we have only federal funds to give out. Having a regional program makes it a lot more viable for federal funding, because there's just no need for all of the federal regulations that go into that unless it's a big project. So a lot of operations projects just aren't expensive enough to warrant it. But if we can get some coordinated effort and a bigger project, then that's definitely opened up some funds from our perspective.
Okay, great.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I would just add really quick to that is that, you know, with local projects and programs, if you include a different partner in it, and you just cross a municipal boundary or a county boundary, you know, that can open up a whole different level of funding for you. So definitely very helpful.
I'll echo what Maria said, just specifically on our connected vehicle program, working through the regional TISMO plan, to be blunt, ARC committed $8 million of federal aid to the program. That's $8 million directed towards connected vehicle efforts across the region that we didn't have before. So I think the answer to that is pretty easily yes. But it's also helped bring locals on board too, because when we're talking about locals getting engaged on connected vehicle technology, all we're asking for now is the 20% match. And so when they're going back to their various city councils or county commissions or what have you, that's a lot easier sell for them to say, look, we're talking about $1,600 per intersection, and we can have operational connected vehicle technology in Hapeville, for example. So that becomes a much easier, and they can rely on the guidance of both GDOT and ARC to ensure that they get a viable product that works in the region, sort of cohesively across the region. So it's definitely been helpful. And as Maria said, I think it's very important for MPOs to think about that too, that as you're looking at your urban attributable funds and you're trying to figure out how you intend to spend those dollars, the delivery of these types of operational strategies is relatively simple compared to some of your traditional infrastructure projects. When you're staying out of environmental considerations, you're staying out of right-of-way considerations, you can deliver on those dollars very quickly through a streamlined process, get them authorized, and get benefit on the ground, so to speak. So I think that's something important to think about.
Faisal?
Yeah, I would agree. And just connecting what Maria and Andrea said, it is a two-way street. So it's a very interesting paradigm. Like, the regionalization certainly helps getting the funds. And when you put the funds on the table, that helps the partnerships and the people come together. And so it really it's a two-way street, and it is a very interesting cycle. We have done it many times in several of the grant applications, and each time, a partnership has strengthened out of that. I cannot agree more. Thank you.
Very good. Okay, I have one last, let's see, somebody added. Do you think scale makes an impact on regionalizing a program? Is a project in New York City different from Atlanta, different from Raleigh?
It's not if it's just scale. I think every region is unique. So every region has to understand its own situation and approach it from that perspective. When you think about Georgia, Georgia has 159 counties and 535, I believe, cities. We are a very fragmented state. And looking at the metro Atlanta region, Maria, what are you guys up to? 20 counties now?
Yeah, getting to 22.
So 20 counties, and I think it's probably like 70 cities or something like that. So Atlanta may be smaller than New York City, but when you think about the complexity of how the region is fragmented from a local perspective, it could be more challenging. So it's just you have to think about your own perspective and what makes the most sense from your own perspective as to how you're trying to tackle these things.
Yeah, I don't know that. I think scale has an impact on it, and how Andrew stated, it just needs to be personalized to your area, but it doesn't make it more or less important, that's for sure. I think any size region should start looking at this just out of the good coordination that can come out of it.
Okay, great. Thank you.
This is Faisal, just to add to the conversation. Sometimes you deliberately need to start small. So if it is a more of a emerging technology, you purposely want to learn at a smaller scale, and don't involve in our experiences that like county and ADOT can start working on something. And connected vehicle, we have been involved since 2007. And we have been keeping the scale very small in the early days, and more serving like an educational and training mechanism. But when you're switching into operations, that's the time to scale it up and bring other partners more involved at a project level. So a smaller scale at a knowledge sharing, bigger scale when you are going to implement and operate.
Okay, great. Okay. All right, last question. What data are you collecting and how is it shared, processed, and utilized?
Well, that's pretty broad. In my presentation earlier on, you saw from the data acquisition working group, sort of the data sources that were identified as a region that were important to the folks in that group. So really for the agencies involved. And I think that effort, when you're talking about data, again, sort of helped to create the playing field of what really matters from a data perspective for all of our various agencies. Let's actually get our arms around it, so that as you're engaging in sort of data related activities, whatever it might be, at least you know what field you're playing in, you know what sport you're playing in, so that you're not running off in a direction that may not have value to the region, or may not frankly have value to yourself. You just don't really know it yet. So I think sort of baselining from a data perspective, from a governance perspective, what really matters to us is going to allow us moving forward to focus as a region our data efforts, to say, well, let's stay within these confines. This is what we all agreed is important. Let's work towards that. And let's figure out how we can obtain, share, build off of all of those things, that subset of data. And if anybody, has questions that, after this session, you can contact me, email or call or whatever. I could get you that list and kind of talk through sort of the motivations of what folks identified as, the important elements that they want to look at.
I have a specific question too about the, I think you guys talked about the rail, the trucks coming from the port and avoiding the rail, if the rail lines and stuff. How is that the only thing that they are receiving? What other kind of information are the trucks going to receive for their routes leaving the port?
Is that to me, Melissa?
You or Maria, if she knows. I think you are the one.
So from a kind of getting in the weeds real quick, from the Georgia port's perspective, there are a few limited access points to Garden City Terminal, which is the major terminal at the Savannah port, and sort of these major arterials that are heavily relied upon by truckers going in and out of the port, some of which have at-grade train crossings for trains leaving the port as well, that can be blocked for periods of time. So one of the things that we're looking to do through the connected vehicle system that we have, and other systems could do this, we're just choosing to do it through the CV system to get that experience, is that sort of real-time awareness as to what's happening from an at-grade crossing perspective, passing that information upstream to truckers as they're coming in, so they can make better routing decisions if crossings are blocked, as examples. So they'd be receiving that information. We are also implementing with certain partners freight priority on some of these routes to improve their operation for both ingress and egress to the port. So that's where we're starting with that system. Where we end up, we're not really sure. We're going to continue to explore and grow through sort of a discovery process, but that's the initial approach.
Okay, great. That's cool. All right. I think that's the last question. Did anybody else want to talk about the data that they want to collect and share, process? Sure.
So the one thing I wanted to add to that was we're at the very beginning process now of collecting data. So we're to grapple with how it's going to be shared and stored. And one thing that has came up that is the security issues with the data collection especially when you're talking about the traffic signal system. So that's something we're having to discuss early on in the project too. So just wanted to point that out too.
This is Faisal, and for us, we have been, our data program started in 2000. I think one lesson we can share is that you have to be very patient, you have to be very incremental, deliberately, so you don't have to rush on the data side. So we started with freeway FMS data, integrated, then we integrated the 911. After that, we started looking the signal data. I think we had the same issue, Brandon, that you're talking about. The way we addressed it is we just keep it for 7 days, so that it kind of partly was also we don't want to be regionally the provider for any legal issues, because a lot of times we are requested the data. It's up to the agency to provide that, not us at the regional level. So we just keep it for 7 days and then it goes away. So we integrated signal data, then we get into the work zones. We get now 10 agencies providing work zone data, 100% 911 data. But I think the value is in the information. And how do you use all these various data set and provide valuable information for operations? And that's where I think we put a lot of our focus recently. Once we have built that backbone of collecting the data, we have put a lot of emphasis on sharing it back as an information and have built this system called Aztec Regional Information System. So that's where we integrate all this variety of data and use it to provide alerts to the partners, provide some real-time information, more than what you get from Google and other map sources that is provided. So then they can take some proactive actions on their operations if they need to change the signal timing or whatever. That's up to them, but our goal is to provide as much information we can help them in their operations.
Okay. All right. Well,
Yeah,
I think
Melissa,
that, yeah.
You'll have to ask me this question again next year.
Okay.
We'll have a lot more to say then.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Good deal. All right. Well, I want to, if nobody else has any other questions, I think that was it. So I want to thank our panelists very much for, it's very good conversation, I think, and really interesting. Really appreciate you guys taking the time, especially Faisal, who had to get up really, really early to get on here. So thanks a lot, guys. Just to remind everybody again that, so for those who kind of joined a little bit late, there are links to a survey and certificate of completion for PDHs on the HUVA homepage. I had gotten one question from someone asking where they didn't see it. Unfortunately, I can't answer that question. Chelsea might be able to answer that. I'm not sure.
Yes. It is
yeah.
on the homepage. You just scroll down a little bit and it's within the text. I think it's like the 3rd paragraph.
Okay, 3rd paragraph. Okay. So Steve, it's buried in there somewhere. And also don't forget about the raffle, $5 tickets to win a $100 Amazon.com gift card to help out the ITS Carolina Scholarship Fund. But thanks. Oh, Steve. All right. It's hard to find, but sounds like you found it, so that's good. All right. Well, thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you, Melissa.
Thank you.
Thank you.